Right, hi, my name's Tracy and I'm going to show you how to put together the wig that comes in my doll kits. In this instance, I'm going to show you how I do it with a sewing machine because I find it a lot easier to use a sewing machine than I do an embroidery machine. So what I do is I take the two pieces from the kit, smooth them down a bit, bring in the fur inwards, just makes things a little bit easier when you start to pin it together. And now we put one side on top of the other with the fur inside. Then we line up the edges. You can put this so that you have the back slightly longer than the front, which will mean the hair will go further down the back than the fringe will, if that's something you want. But you need to bear in mind that when you sew it together, you need to sew from the shortest side, because if you sew from the longest side, you're going to miss, you're more likely to miss the smaller piece. In this instance, I'm going to keep it simple and we're just going to sew it together the same way. All we do, smooth and flip. Just make sure that the hair or the fur is on the inside. It saves less time when you've got it on the doll and you having to get a pin to pull out the hair in the join. Again, line up the bottom and just pin them together. Now I find the clips easier to deal with than I do pins or anything like that. Plus, if you try to do it without, it's quite thick fabric and that can cause issues with your sewing when you're sewing, because the foot will catch up in all the thick fabric. Now, what I choose to use is a walking foot. The reason I choose to use a walking foot is because it's quite thick fabric. You've got two layers with fur in the middle. So by using a walking foot, you're going to get more traction on the fabric, which means it will go around the diameter much easier. Now, I don't want to leave a big seam allowance, so I set my machine up and then I move the needle to the right as far as it can go. Once that's done, I tuck the fur out as much as possible, take off the first clip and slide it under. Now, what I need is for the walking foot, the part that pushes down into the fabric, to be just inside this line, the diameter. So what I do is I keep the fabric in line with the edge of the walking foot, and that way my line is always going to be on the inside. Bear in mind, these aren't cut precisely, so you are going to get differences in size, and really it's a matter of just double checking as you sew around that you're catching both pieces. So I've got everything lined up, I'm happy with that. So now I just start to sew. Now Don't forget to lock your stitches. Not hugely important, but you don't want it to start to unravel on the doll. I use quick wrap glue, so it's not something that's likely to happen, but it's always a good practice to lock your stitches. So now we double check that the layers are one on top of the other and sew round, keeping the edge of that walking foot to the edge of the fabric. Double check. Again, we just need to line up that fabric, hold it in place, and continue to sew. We need to double check the fabric. As you can see, it is longer on top and less in that area. So we hold it in place, continue to sew. Hold the clip out, and then tuck the fur in if it starts to come out. Tuck it in. Again, line it up and sew. As you can see, we need to bring that out some. There we go. Now, I like to sew up to the clip, right up to the clip, because that way it doesn't stretch the fabric and end up with one piece longer or shorter than the other. So we continue to sew round, taking it to the end and lock the stitches. So now what we have is a nice seam that's catching both bits of fabric. It's not taking up too much of the fabric. So this is a 6x10 size doll wig.